Good morning, everybody, and welcome, and thank you. Let me add the thanks that Steve has given you for coming today. I sat in the audience last year, and I know from a personal perspective, got an amazing amount of insights and tips and tools and ideas from the amazing array of speakers last year. And I think the organisers have gone and surpassed what they created last year. As you know, we have 4 fantastic keynote speakers up here on the stage, and 4 breakout speakers. I know you can only go to 2 of them, which I'm sure is a frustration to you, because they are all world class. Some other changes as well. We have more access and more ability for you to meet the exhibitors, and we'd ask you to support the exhibitors in the hall. You'll be having lunch in there today, which I think is going to add to the connectivity and the ability to gain from the next 8 hours or so. Before I introduce the first speaker, I'm going to get a bit personal. How many of you have been in love? Let's be honest. Come on, we're all friends. Who's been in love? That's not bad, not bad. Okay, one that I know you'll all put your hands up for. Who's been a teenager? Keep your hands up if you've been a teenager and in love. It's tough, isn't it? It's tough. And that's where, I guess, the irony of me standing here starts, being able to speak to you as a professional speaker. Because in many ways, I think it's fair to say that sales saved my life. Let me explain. I was in love as a teenager, like many of us have been. Her name was Rosa. I was at school in Crawley in Sussex. But here's the problem, everybody. I couldn't interact with her because I had a genuine social phobia in a way. My nickname was Radish, because whenever I spoke to anybody, my face went bright red, and I was a small, or tall, skinny teenager with a red face. Now, I laugh now, but let me tell you, it was a real issue. Not just about Rosa. In class, the teacher would ask me a question, and I'd go bright red, and everyone would laugh at me. So the fact that I now do this as a living is interesting, and it's because of your profession. It's because of sales. What my parents did is say, Jonathan, why don't you go and get a Saturday job? Start selling. And I joined the local sports shop called Snowball, and I began to better, I hope, my social skills by meeting members of the public, and this is 1987 roughly, and becoming less red as I interacted and met members of the public and sold them sportswear. So high street retail is where I started as a teenager. I then joined a jewellery shop, which was along the road. And in my career since then, it's always been sales and business development. From the rather dodgy telephone sales job as a student, £3 an hour at the £1,000 kitchen company, you can imagine what that was like, to the BBC and media sales and on from there. But I left 10 years ago to set up the meteorology lab. And I tell you why I did it. I did it because I could see that when it came to sales, when it came to interaction, when it came to connecting as humans, psychology and science could give us a lot of insight. And I have a team of 5 psychologists who we now speak and train, not really on sales, if I'm honest, not specifically, but I highlight the most important aspect of sales, and that's connecting with other people. I mentioned it in the networking event earlier on. I put it to you, who leads a team of psychologists. You can have the best service, the best product. You can train your staff to the hilt on the processes behind it. But if they can't connect with your customers, you've invested and potentially wasted a lot of money. And our specialism is face-to-face, and that's really important, everybody, because I can tell you from a psychological perspective, there's a lot of benefits of meeting face-to-face rather than on Skype. I mean, look at us now. We haven't chosen to all dial in to a massive Skype call, have we? You've come from around the country, maybe from overseas, to be here in this room, to see the speakers, to interact with each other. And levels of empathy and trust have been shown to be increased when we meet face to face. I want to take a moment to explain why this is so important from us as a human species. Shout out a passion for me that you do. Some hobbies. Who goes fishing between work and home time? Anyone go fishing? Yeah. Do you? Fantastic. Great. Genuinely, thank you. Yoga. Pub. Anybody else? Any hobbies? Tell me your hobbies. That's fast. Tell me your hobbies. Horse riding, thank you. Okay. Well, I can tell you from a neuroscience perspective that our brains have a hobby as well. And you might be surprised to know what that is. The brain never does nothing. But let me tell you, when it's not doing something cognitive specifically, like a jigsaw or a mathematical equation or a certain task, neuroscientists doing fMRI scans have identified that the bit that turns on, the bit that lights up, they've called the default network. Now, you might not know, but this default network area has one basic interest: understanding and navigating our place in the social world. Ladies and gentlemen, you and I, are wired to be social. The default network is thinking, what are they thinking of me? Am I being excluded? Well, it's constantly, all unconscious, but when you are not doing anything specific, you're thinking about being social. Great book, Social, by Matthew Lieberman, American psychologist, if you're interested in this. So we are social beings, hence why we've come here today. And I suggest that meeting face-to-face in a sales capacity has many benefits too. There's other areas we can look at from a neuroscience perspective. Well, I asked you actually if you've been in love. Anyone had their heart broken? Okay. Anyone broken their leg or had physical pain? Here's some interesting psychology. What did you do when you had your heart broken? How did you overcome it? Pub? I was speaking in Russia 3 weeks ago. Everyone in unison said, vodka. Anyway, what do we do when we have a heart broken? What can we do? Cry, yeah, therapy, whatever it might be. What do you do when you break your arm or your leg or have a headache? Pardon? Pub. Drugs? Yeah? Did you know the same drug that gets rid of your headache, that overcomes the pain of a broken leg or arm, is equally effective in overcoming social pain? Yes, take Tylenol when you've been dumped by your girlfriend or boyfriend, and levels of social pain have been shown to decrease. Neurologically, the areas of the brain that relate to physical pain and social pain are very, very similar. Hence, why we're here, I think. And finally, who likes chocolate? The area of the brain that lights up, the pleasure area, it's a bit simple to say that, but the area that relates to pleasure, is exactly the same area that relates to when we are fair with other people. So from a neuroscience perspective, I can also say to you, I don't like the phrase, but the idea of a win-win negotiation is based in science. We like to be fair to people. We like to be honest, we like to be fair, even when it's at our own disadvantage. Some amazing in-depth psychology that I can't go into now, but research. So when you're dealing with your client, drilling them down to the last penny and walking away thinking, screwed them, isn't scientifically potentially the best way to do it. So we're social creatures. We've chosen to come here to Coventry to engage with each other because it's what we're wired to do. And I suggest when you're selling, you hopefully will meet face-to-face as well. And so finally, what can science tell us? Well, it can tell us that we negotiate more effectively when we're happy. Absolutely. When we're happy, we negotiate 30% better in some studies. So I thought we might just do something to make us happy. Do a little experiment this morning. I want you to give the biggest, cheesiest smile to the person next to you. I want you to show them your wisdom teeth with the most beautiful, glowing smile. This is based on psychology, and I'm going to explain afterwards. But here's the thing. Shh. What I want you to say to them is that you're having the worst day of your life. And I'm going to explain the psychology about what we're doing afterwards, because there's a perfectly practical tip and insight from psychology in this experiment. Lads, if we could have some music when we do this, look at each other, big smile, but verbally mismatch by saying you're having a terrible day. 10 seconds each, and then go. Music if we can, guys. Cheers. Okay. You've just done a psychological experiment, which is brilliant if you want to change your emotional state. What we're looking at there is research from James Laird, an American psychologist, who talks about the following. He has the as-if principle. And it basically goes as follows. If we are happy, we smile. But if we smile, we become happy. The psychologically validated as-if principle. If you want to feel a certain emotion, act as if you are already in it. Public speaking, you ask the actors, you ask the professional presenters, if I'm not feeling confident, I'll act as if I am, and my emotions will catch up. You've got a sales presentation, you're nervous about negotiating, difficult client, facially, physiologically, you can just act as if you are. You can touch other people. In retail sales, we've seen a 17% increase when people have physically made contact. You can ask someone to go up an escalator or an elevator because we've seen that as people go up, they become more morally thoughtful and they donate in experiments twice as much to a charity after they've been going up an elevator than when at the bottom. What else can you do? Loads of things. What other things could you do? Yeah, you could do that. You could ask them in the right ear. Italian psychologists in nightclubs found that when people were asking for the numbers of other people, they tended to get a yes when they reached round and asked them in the right ear of the person they were asking. And you can also mirror other people. There's great psychology that shows that when we highlight similarities and we do things similarly, it can have a big impact on the connectivity. Think about accents. I mean, we do this automatically, don't we, as humans? Here we are in Birmingham, and it might be a surprise for you to know that I was actually born in Birmingham. I was born in the QE2 hospital in 1972, and I spoke like that until I was about 11. And then I moved to Sussex when my dad got a job, and I adapted. We naturally follow and copy and mirror and imitate those who we interact with. So, if you put all those together, it could look rather strange because you'll be heading out of the exhibition, all meeting at the top of the escalators, asking each other in the right ear, touching each other, and copying. So I'll know if you're meeting up there that you will have got something from the opening. But I suggest to you that psychology and behavioral science can really help the sales community. Keep the processes, train everybody, great. But when it comes to influence and persuasion and connectivity, I suggest the skills in those areas, the people skills of you and your staff, are arguably the most important area. So I hope that's of use to you.